At the end of the day, it was not about the valuation of the player. We had our time with Dak and there with him and felt totally comfortable with him the first time around. It really, and throughout most of the negotiation, most of it was really about the term and trying to figure out the best way, to figure this out because we wanted to time up long term. There were nuances about the Goff and Wentz deal when we first attempted to get the deal done, and we were real close.
We bring in Stephen Jones right now, the CEO of the Dallas Cowboys. He joins us now here on the National Football Show. You know, I used to say this all the time. We used to have some downtime in the NFL, but no longer. Stephen, how you doing, man? Thank you so much for doing this.
Man, I'm doing great. Great to be on with you today, Dan, and can't believe we're hard at it again. And it's great for Mike to be having his hands on our players here from day one, and our guys are working hard and doing a great job.
Stephen, I opened up by saying, back when you guys initially bought the team in '89, I was in the building with you guys, and I used to remember there used to be some type of downtime for everybody to kind of gather themselves after the previous year. That's not like that in the NFL, is it anymore?
Well, it's on the coaches. They don't really get it until here mid-June. They're off. They get about a month, but and of course the players kind of get their time at the end of the season, and they usually start wanting to get back to work in March. And so they get a little time there, but it's nothing like it used to be.
Stephen, take us through the process of inking down Dak's contract and the terms that you guys did. Was it about the evaluation of the player? And I say this because I don't think people really realize what was going on while you guys were doing the negotiations. There was a pandemic also going on, and you guys also had to look out with your cap guy on what that was going to mean 3 years from now. Because, hey, Stephen, I love a Ferrari, but I got to send a kid to college. I got to pay for my mortgage. I'd like to have that thing in my garage too, but there's things that got to be paid for down the line. Is that what it really was about? Take us through the process on inking Dak's deal.
No, at the end of the day, it was not about the valuation of the player. We had our time with Dak and there with him and felt totally comfortable with him the first time around. It really, and throughout most of the negotiation, most of it was really about the term and trying to figure out the best way, to figure this out because we wanted to time up long term. There were nuances about the Goff and Wentz deal when we first attempted to get the deal done, and we were real close, short of us just not being able to agree upon the term of the contract. Wentz and Goff each had 2 years left on their deal. Dak had one. And so we were wanting to have Dak under the same amount of years as Goff and Wentz were under. And at the end of the day, as close as we were, it wasn't a money issue. It was more of a term issue. And then we moved into the second year trying to get the deal done. And we were, of course, still wanting a 5-year deal. They were wanting a 4. And but the other thing that unfortunately played into the situation was the pandemic, and what we didn't know as we were negotiating and this thing were playing out is we were starting to look at were you even going to get to play football at all as time progressed, and that was, as we know, has affected and was going to affect the salary cap in a big way. So that made the negotiations even harder and made our desire to have a 5-year deal even more so because of the unknown out there. And it was never an issue of Dak and his value and what he was going to mean to us. It was term. It was trying to deal with the pandemic and how it was going to affect the salary cap over not only last year, but obviously it's having an effect because you're banking some of those revenue, some of the cap that we did. We didn't let the cap go down last year. So we were having to deal with that and work through all of that. And then, of course, it was once we got into really figuring out kind of how the cap situation was going to be, felt good that the pandemic was going to play out it was never going to be difficult in my mind to get Dak signed. And it's a zero-sum game for us at the end of the day. We're going to, as you know, we're going to spend every last nickel on the salary cap, and it's just how we divide it up. And but there was never an issue with us, short of him just refusing not to do something. And we felt every step of the way Dak was really very positive about being a Cowboy. The only place he wanted to play was Dallas, so we never had any doubt that we would end up getting a deal with Dak.
Stephen, I had a conversation with Dan Mullen, his coach at Mississippi State, and I'll tell you, I've fallen in love with him more even when he was sitting out, and I'll tell you why. Dan said to me, he goes like this, he goes, when I had him at a camp, man, this guy couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And my strength conditioning coach came over to me and said, you got to sign this kid. There's something special about this guy. So Dan Mullen goes like this. I gave him a couple drills to work on. He came back 6 months later, and Dan Mullen said he could not believe the process that he had taken and how much advancement he had gotten. So they signed him. And then they saw the same progressions again. We're looking at a late bloomer here, aren't we, Stephen? We're looking at a guy here that this is a guy you want as the face of your franchise, and this guy's just going to continue to get better and better because of that drive that he has inside of him. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I've said it every step of the way. Jerry said it. You're dealing with a very unique it factor with Dak. He is the Pied Piper. He's the leader of this team almost from the day he walked in the door. Obviously, once Tony got hurt, he stepped into that role, and the rest is history. And people, he just has a very unique way about him. On top of that, he just has insatiable appetite to be great. And you mentioned his what Dan Mullen had to say about him from the time he walked into the doors at Mississippi State, and it hadn't been any different here. You can't give him enough, and the guy wants to be the very best at what he does. He wants to win championships, and we're just very fortunate to have him. And he's an unbelievable. On a scale of 10, he's a 10 as a competitor. He wants to win. The only thing we got to dial back a little bit is we got to keep him upright. And as invincible as he thinks he is, even you can have an awkward play like he had last year and he can get hurt. So he's certainly got to be smart, which he will, about when he decides to make a play with his feet. But he's just a very unique man, a very unique leader. And we think we've got the right guy to lead us to Super Bowl championships, if you will.
Stephen, will he be ready for training camp?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm convinced if we were going to play Sunday, he'd be able to go. We're certainly going to take a very conservative route with him. There's no need to put him in harm's way, but he looks fantastic out there working in the workouts we're having out at the Star. He's just outstanding, and there's no doubt he'll be ready to go.
Stephen, you mentioned the pandemic. I'm wondering for yourself and for Jerry to, build a roster, put the people in place. Everyone knows the NFL has to balance that salary cap, and the only way you're going to win in this league is if you're paying for special teams, defense, offense. How tough has that been for you guys during the pandemic, not just with the Dak contract, but to construct a roster in itself during the pandemic itself?
Well,
looks like we lost Stephen Jones here for a second. We'll see if we can reconnect here in a second here. I would say this to you here, that's got to be one of the most difficult things that every single executive has had to do is, get that and to be able to build that roster, knowing that the pandemic was going to take 25% of the salary cap away. Make no mistake about it there. I mean, that was going to be an issue here when it came to constructing any kind of contracts that were going to be extended out. That's why you saw a lot of guys in free agency that were out there that were in their mid-20s because, hey, guys, you know what? If you don't have a balanced salary cap, and I've said this before to people, having that balanced salary cap is without a doubt one of the most important things that you could possibly need when it comes to constructing a a roster, and you have to have that. I've always said that. I've always thought that that was the secret sauce in New England, that the Patriots were able to, again, be able to balance that cap over those 20 years. They never had gigantic salaries on that roster. Even Tom Brady was always giving money back when it came to, the roster, so that they can go out and get offensive linemen, so that they can go back into a scenario where if they needed a position, say on special teams, or they needed depth in their offensive line, there was no doubt that that was something that they were afforded because Brady gave money back. And make no mistake about it, that was one of the secret sauces there. And that's what I was asking with Steven here, was putting these rosters together like that. Make no mistake about it, man. I mean, that's how you construct them today. So, when you're seeing all these names that are out there in free agency, and you see Julio Jones, or you see guys like that are out there, it's not just that quick where a guy can pick up the phone and go like this: hey, I'd like to sit here and I'd like to go there and pick up this player. If that guy doesn't fit under the salary cap, make no mistake about it, man, you're not going to be able to sit there and put that player on your team. And what it'll do is it'll hurt you in 3 years. How many times do you see teams that are in salary cap hell because of the scenario there that, they front loaded their roster? All of a sudden they had to, at the end of the day, start jettisoning guys. And before you know it, they went through 5 years of bad football. Because why? They had 5 years of bad contracts on that team. So we bring our friend Stephen Jones back in here. And Stephen, where I was going with that is that, the scenario was that, when you're looking at it, Stephen, is that, when you have a salary cap like that and you had this pandemic, that must have been very difficult for you, Stephen, to really put that roster together.
Well, I'll start with it's more important than ever, and especially now for the Cowboys when you have one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, one of the highest paid running backs, certainly a great receiving core led by Amari Cooper, who's paid at the top. And then you take that veteran offensive line, which I think can be one of the best in the business. You have to. It's a requirement that you have success in the draft. And Will McClay with his staff has just done an amazing job over the years of drafting well. He works so well with our coaching staff, whether it's in the past or now with Mike and his staff. And I really feel like you can see how important we think it is. We took all 11 picks. I know some people may have felt like we should have used 1 or 2 picks to move up and get a safety or something like that. But we felt like it was important to take 11 picks. And we think all 11 picks have a chance to make our team. And that would do so much for our cap. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I just think Dan Quinn's brought tremendous energy, tremendous communication with our players, with his staff. And I think it's going to make a huge difference on that side of the ball as well. So fired up about our team, but you're so correct that this cap is, certainly tight after the pandemic, and certainly the effects the pandemic had on the cap. And that's where you've got to hit on young players. And we think we can do that with our draft picks.
Looking at the 2021 roster going into the season, I mean, Stephen, you guys build championship football rosters each and every single year. The fulfillment of the players and being able to run across the finish line is always put in their hands once the season starts. How do you feel about this year's Cowboy team and this Cowboy roster going into fall camp?
Yeah, I just mentioned, I just think, offensively, health is the number one requirement. I mean, we look up out there and we see the guys who are out there in the first string huddle, and you look at it and you say, I can't believe we played last year without Dak Prescott, without Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins and Zach Martin. That's a difficult thing, and we still played some pretty good offensive football. But I think if we stay healthy and we have that whole allotment of that crew back, whether it's our offensive line, whether it's Dak, Zeke, the receiving core, certainly had Dalton Schultz step up, and we get Blake Jarwin back, who missed all year with an injury. We think we can be one of the better offensive, if not the best offense in our league. And then you look at the defensive side, adding Dan Quinn. We certainly concentrated in a big way in the draft on defense. I think those guys are going to make a big difference coming in here to what we think's already got some really good players on our defensive side of the ball. When you look at DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory and Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch. I think they'll recover and work here with Dan Quinn and do a great job for us. So we're fired up about our football team.
Two last questions for you, Stephen. You mentioned the defense and Dan Quinn here. Tell me if you think I'm off base here when I say this. When you go from a 43 to a 34, then you go 34, 43. Boy, that's just not that easy as people might think out there, because personnel settings, when it comes to a 3-man front versus a 4-man front, if you don't have the 4 guys to be able to control a football game, you're not going to be able to control a football game. Did you guys get caught in the middle of that a little bit a year ago by maybe not having the edge guys to set the edge and, going back and forth in between a 3-4, 4-3, or am I off base?
I just think the big thing was the change and then not being able to implement that change in a normal off season. I think Coach Nolan had some great thoughts. I think this day and time to just say you're just going to run 4-3 fronts, odds, evens, all those type of things, you've got to be multiple. And I think Dan's going to be multiple. I think we have good players. I think the biggest thing is just getting these players in here early and often and having those guys know what they're going to knowing what they're supposed to do so they can play fast. And Dan's reiterated that. It's you can already see it out on the field out there. They're communicating. You can see they understand what Dan's trying to get accomplished. They're moving around out on the field at a great pace and cadence. And I think that's the key, is just making sure our guys know what they're supposed to do. And I think we've got the personnel now and got some good young players that we're going to be able to mix in there. On the defensive side, as you know, we had a defensive-heavy draft. So we just feel really good that this defense is going to take a huge step right back to where it was, if not even better, from a couple years ago.
Last question for you. There's no question that you guys each and every single year build this roster, as I said, for championship football. I'm just wondering, after all these years, how much has changed for you guys going to work each and every single day? I mean, look, you've got 3 Super Bowl championships on you guys' resume since Jerry bought the team in 1989. Stephen, I mean, it's been an iconic run for you guys, and the quest to win a Super Bowl has always been there for you guys. Just the passion that Jerry has to continue to do this. It just seems every year he's right there, and he so wants this. It looks like he wants this title more than anything he's ever done before, even in the past when he set the blueprint on how you should do it at Dallas.
Well, I said it a couple of years ago. I think the only thing he would have traded for that Hall of Fame was a Super Bowl, and I think he's genuine about that. I mean, this burns bright. It's been entirely too long since we brought a championship back to our fans. Our fans are simply amazing. We think we have the best fans in America, and certainly they stick with us in spades, albeit and don't blame them, frustrating at times. But nothing burns brighter in Jerry's belly or mine or our organizations than to win a championship right now. And we're so fired up about the group we have here, whether it's our coaching staff, whether it's our players, whether it's our scouting staff. We think we've got the right pieces in place. We just got to go take the next step and get that winning label going again. And we certainly think we can do that. I mean, led by Dak Prescott, who I think has got winner written all over him. He's certainly got the it factor, and we just think we got the pieces in place. We just got to go out there and get the job done.
Only place in the NFL 13-3 is a failure season. Stephen, I appreciate you coming aboard. I don't know if you're 13-3, right, Stephen, in Dallas with the Cowboys. Man, that's a bad team.
Well, we know what we need to do here, and that's win a championship. So that's what our goal is, and we're going to go get after it.
You got it. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your time. I really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
You got it. Stephen Jones, our dear friend from the Dallas Cowboys.